The first time I realized a haunting can keep growing was under fluorescent lights, with a hallway that smelled like bleach and rain. A door at the end of the ward wouldn't stay shut, not because of draft speed, because something on the other side kept testing it. The latch clicked like a slow heartbeat, as if it was learning your schedule. If you enjoy true horror stories whispered from the dark, don't forget to subscribe, if you dare. Welcome to Mr. BlackWhisper. I took the night shift at a private clinic because it paid better and asked fewer questions. The building was new on paper, all glass and clean lines. But the inside felt older, like the air had already been used up by people who didn't leave properly. My job was simple: watch the monitors, check the doors, walk the halls once an hour, make sure the generators stayed quiet. The kind of work where your mind floats until it hits something sharp. The first week was uneventful. The second week, the motion sensor in corridor C began to trigger at 3:11 a.m. every night. A single soft chime on the security panel. Then the camera feed would brighten as the infrared engaged. There was never anyone there. It wasn't a glitch. I tested it. I stood perfectly still and watched the sensor status. No movement, no flicker. It stayed green until 3:11, when it went red like a small lie being told on schedule. The corridor itself was always the same. Polished floors, closed patient rooms, a fire door at the far end that led to an unfinished wing slated for expansion. The clinic didn't talk about that wing. It was behind the fire door, where the air turned colder and the lights didn't reach. One morning after my shift, I asked the day nurse if anyone worked in the expansion area. She didn't answer right away. She just looked at the coffee in her hands like it could say it for her. "That door should stay shut," she said finally, as if I'd asked about a patient. "If it doesn't, call maintenance. Don't go in." That should have been enough. But the thing about rules on night shift is that they start to feel like superstition if you never see the reason behind them. So on the 15th night at 3:10, I left my desk and walked toward corridor C. The clinic was hushed the way hospitals are hushed, not quiet, exactly, but full of soft systems. Ventilation breathing through vents. Distant monitors ticking out heartbeats. The low hum of lights that never truly turn off. At 3:11, the motion sensor chimed. At the same moment, I heard a click. It wasn't in the corridor. It was deeper, like a latch being tested. I stopped at the fire door. The handle was cold, even through my glove. The metal felt like it had been resting in snow. Another click came from the other side. Slow, patient, not a rattle, not an accident. A deliberate press and release, as if someone was learning the exact amount of pressure needed to open it. I told myself it was settling. Temperature changes, old hinges, anything. And then the door handle moved under my hand. Not pulled by me, not nudged by a draft. It rotated downward with steady force, as if another hand had found the same handle from the inside and was turning it in perfect opposition. The fire door didn't open. It couldn't. There was a safety latch and a magnetic lock tied to the alarm system, but the handle moved anyway, and the metal in my palm grew slick with cold. I let go. The handle returned to its resting position with a soft, polite clack, like a person correcting their posture. I backed away, forcing myself to breathe calmly, refusing to let the hall know I was afraid. That was the first time. It didn't end there. After that night, the sensor didn't just trigger at 3:11. It triggered at 3:11. 3:12, 3:13 each minute, like a countdown that never reached zero. Maintenance replaced the sensor. The new one did the same. Then the cameras started to change. On the monitor, corridor C would appear normal until the infrared engaged. In that brief shift of light, the far end of the hall looked longer. Not stretched like a trick of perspective, longer like someone had pulled it farther away. The fire door in the infrared looked slightly open. I would blink, lean closer, zoom in. Closed. Always closed. But at 3:11 on the dot, the screen would show a thin black seam where the door met the frame, a seam that shouldn't exist. I began to dread that minute like a waking nightmare. Even my body learned it. My mouth would dry at 3:09. My pulse would pick up at 3:10. At 3:11, my skin would prickle as if the building had turned its attention on me. One morning, a patient in room 204 coded unexpectedly. I watched the nurses run past, watched the crash cart slam into the wall, watched the doctor's face flatten into concentration. It was urgent, human, loud in the quiet way emergencies are. When it was over, when they covered him and wheeled him out, the head nurse leaned against the counter and closed her eyes. "This place eats nights," she murmured. I didn't ask what she meant. That night, the fire door's handle moved again. Only this time, I wasn't in the corridor. I was at my desk. I saw it on the monitor, the handle rotating down, slow and precise, as if someone on the other side was practicing. The door didn't open. The seam still appeared. Then something else happened, something that made my stomach go tight in a way fear never quite explains. A second handle appeared, not physically, not in real life. On the infrared camera feed, just below the actual handle, a faint outline formed another metal shape, slightly wrong, like a reflection that didn't match. It rotated too, but in the opposite direction, as if two invisible hands were learning a mechanism together. I realized then that whatever was behind that door was not just trying to get out. It was learning how. I stood up before I could talk myself down. I walked to corridor C, each step heavy with the knowledge that I didn't have to do this, that no one would blame me if I stayed at my desk and watched from a distance. But I needed the door to be ordinary again. I needed the seam to be a glitch, the clicks to be pipes, the second handle to be my tired mind. When I reached the fire door, I put my ear against it. At first, nothing. Then breathing. Not mine. Not the vents. Something slow and shallow, like a person trying to stay quiet. And under it, another sound. Small, wet. Like a tongue pressing against teeth. A click, the latch being tested again. I forced myself to speak, soft and foolish. I said, "Who's there?" The breathing paused. Then, from the other side, a whisper slipped through the metal. Not words exactly, more like an imitation of words, the shape of speech without meaning. But one sound was clear, as if it had been practiced. My name? It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was intimate, like a person behind a curtain who knew they would be seen eventually. I stumbled back. The handle rotated down once more. This time, I heard the magnetic lock give a tiny protestant electrical tick, as if the system was receiving a command it didn't understand. The seam in the door widened to a thin black line. Cold air pushed through. Not a draft, a breath. In that breath was the smell of rain and something older, like damp paper left in a sealed box for years. I stared at the crack and saw nothing inside. Not darkness, exactly. Not emptiness either. It looked like depth. Like the space behind the door didn't belong to the clinic anymore. The seam held for 2 seconds. 3. Then the alarm panel at my desk began to beep, faint and confused, as if the building itself had realized something was wrong. The seam snapped shut. The handle returned to its resting position with that same polite clack, and the breathing on the other side continued, calm as ever. I quit the next day. I told them it was stress. I told them I couldn't handle nights anymore. I didn't mention corridor C, or the second handle, or the way my name sounded when something that wasn't human tried to wear it. They didn't argue. The administrator just nodded like he'd heard it before. On my last walk out, I passed the fire door one more time in daylight. It looked harmless, clean, locked. But as I reached the lobby, my phone vibrated with a notification from the clinic's security app on automated alert I'd forgotten to disable. Motion detected. Corridor C timestamp, 3:11 a.m., and beneath it. The camera thumbnail showed the fire door slightly open, a seam of black that looked like a smile learning how to widen. I still wake up some nights at 3:11, certain I can hear a latch being tested somewhere in the dark, and certain it's getting better at it. I used to drive the highway between my apartment and my mother's place twice a week. Late at night, because traffic was lighter and I liked the way the city fell away into silence. There was a stretch of road about 30 miles out, no streetlights, just reflective markers and the occasional distant farm glow. People called it the Dead Mile as a joke. After a while, it didn't feel like a joke. It started with a sign. A simple green highway sign that read, Exit 14, River Road. One night, passed it and noticed something wrong about the letters. Not misspelled, not faded. Wrong like they were arranged by someone who didn't understand language but understood shapes. River Rod. The E and O were slightly off. Like a copy of a copy, I blinked hard. It was normal again in my rear-view mirror. I told myself I was tired. The next week, the same sign looked wrong again. Different wrong. Exit 1 for Rel VR Road. A lowercase L instead of an I. I slowed without meaning to. The car behind me flashed its lights. I sped up, heart thumping. When I looked back, the sign was normal. That should have been where it ended. A strange optical thing. A tired brain, pattern matching in darkness. But then the exits began to repeat. I would pass exit 14, keep going, and 10 minutes later, I would see it again. Same sign, same bend in the road. Same cluster of trees that leaned in like they were listening. The first time I thought I'd missed a turn. The second time, I checked my GPS. It showed me moving forward, mile by mile. But the map's little blue arrow kept sliding across the same short segment of highway, as if the world had stopped scrolling. On the third night it happened, I pulled over onto the shoulder, hands shaking against the wheel, and watched the road ahead. No cars, no headlights. Just the highway stretching forward into a tunnel of black. And in that black, just beyond where my beams faded, something reflected. Not an animal, not a sign. Two pale points, like eyes catching light for a split second, then vanishing. I waited. I listened to the engine tick. I stared until my vision made shapes out of nothing. Then I saw it again, those 2 points, this time closer. I didn't see a body. I didn't see movement. Just the brief flare of reflection and the feeling, deep and unreasoning, that something out there was measuring the distance between us. I didn't get out of the car. I drove. At the next exit 14, I made a decision that wasn't logical. Teat. River Road. I'd never taken it before. The ramp curved down into darkness. The highway noise fell away, and suddenly the world was only my headlights and the narrow strip of pavement ahead. River Road wasn't on my GPS anymore. The map went blank, as if my phone had lost the concept of where I was. Trees crowded both sides. Their branches formed an arch, and the air felt heavier, thicker, like driving into a wet cloth. I drove for maybe 5 minutes before I saw the first house. It was far back from the road, barely visible, but its porch light was on. Warm, ordinary, a relief, a sign of life. Then I saw another house. Same porch light, same color, same brightness. Then another. Each one set back the same distance. Each one with the same light burning steadily, as if the road had been copied and pasted with identical details. I started to sweat. My hand slipped on the wheel. The radio crackled, and for a moment, I thought I'd hear a station, a voice. Instead, there was a soft static that sounded almost like whispering, like a crowd trying to speak through a wall. Then the whispering sharpened into something else. My own name, said quickly, like someone trying it on. I turned the radio off. The whisper continued for a second, as if it didn't need the radio to exist. And then, headlights behind me. I looked in the mirror and saw a car, far back, following. Relief hit me so hard, it hurt. Another driver, another human being trapped in whatever this was. I slowed to let them pass. They didn't. They matched my speed, staying behind, steady as a shadow. I tried to focus on the road. The trees were denser now. The air smelled faintly of river mud, even though there was no river. Then my headlights caught something on the right shoulder. A person, standing still, facing the road. I couldn't see their face. It's just the shape of a body, too thin, too upright, as if it had been placed there. They didn't wave. They didn't move. As I approached, my stomach dropped because I realized they weren't standing on the shoulder. They were standing slightly above it, as if their feet didn't need the ground. I drove past without looking directly at them. In the side mirror, their head turned to follow me, slow and smooth, like a camera panning. My heart hammered. I whispered, "No," without meaning to. The car behind me flashed its high beams once. Not aggressive, not impatient. It felt like a signal. I sped up. The road narrowed. The identical houses continued, porch lights glowing like patient eyes. My phone's clock changed. It blinked from 2:47 to 3:11 without any minutes in between. And then, ahead, I saw the highway again. A ramp rising up, reflective markers, the familiar curve. Hope surged. I took the ramp, climbed, and merged back onto the highway like escaping a nightmare. My GPS returned. The map snapped back to normal. I laughed once, breathless and shaking, and told myself it was over. Then I glanced at my rearview mirror. The car was still behind me. Same distance, same headlights. No visible license plate. No distinct shape beyond the glare. I changed lanes. It changed lanes. I slowed. It slowed. I took the next exit 15, not 14. It followed. I pulled into a gas station and parked under bright lights, my whole body vibrating with adrenaline. I sat there, watching the entrance, waiting to see the other car pull in. It never did. The highway beyond the station was empty. No headlights. No engine sounds. Just the hum of the vending machine and the distant buzz of the fluorescent canopy. I told myself it had turned off, that it had never been real. That stress had made my brain stitch a story out of night and loneliness. I drove home at dawn with every light on in my car, refusing to look at the roadside too closely. That night, at 3:11, my phone buzzed with a notification from my navigation app. Continue straight for exit 14, River Road. I hadn't been driving. I hadn't even opened the app. On the screen was a map I didn't recognize, blank and dark, with a single thin line curving through it like a vein. And at the end of that line, a small blue dot marked my location, moving forward mile by mile, as if some part of me had never left that road at all. When my father died, we cleaned out his house in the kind of silence that isn't peaceful. It was a tight suburban home with old carpet and too many framed photos. The air carried that stale sweetness of rooms kept closed too long. He lived alone after my mother left. He wasn't cruel, just absent, even when he was in the room. There was one thing in the house I couldn't touch at first: the answering machine, not voicemail, an actual machine. Beige plastic, sitting on the kitchen counter like a forgotten organ. The little red light blinked. Messages. 5. My father had died 3 weeks ago. The phone line was supposed to be disconnected. I stared at the blinking light for a long time before I pressed play. The first message was static, then a dial tone, then silence, like someone had called and held the line open, listening. The second message was a wrong number. Woman asking for someone else. Ordinary. The third message was my voice. I heard myself say softly, "Dad, it's me. Call me back." It was a message I remembered leaving months ago. Hearing it again in that kitchen felt like touching a bruise. Then came the fourth message. Static, louder this time, a faint clicking, like nails on plastic. Then my father's voice. Not a recording from the past, not a saved message. It sounded close, breathy, like he was leaning over the machine right then. He said my name once. Then he whispered, "Don't come upstairs." My hands went cold. I looked toward the staircase that led to his bedroom and office. The upstairs had been emptied already, boxes stacked, closets cleaned. Nothing left but dust and a faint smell of his cologne. I played the message again. Same words, same breath, same warning. Then the fifth message started. It was quiet at first. Then a low sound, like someone inhaling through their teeth. And then, very faint, as if far away in a large room, I heard footsteps. Slow, even, coming closer. The message ended with a soft click, like a receiver being set down. I stood in that kitchen and listened to the house. The refrigerator, the distant tick of a wall clock. The soft settling of wood, nothing else. I told myself it was a prank, a glitch, some stored message my father had left for me, a bitter joke. But my father wasn't the kind of man who made jokes like that. I unplugged the answering machine and slid it into a box labeled kitchen. That night, I slept on the couch downstairs because I was too tired to drive home. The house felt unfamiliar in darkness. Shadows clung to corners. Every small sound seemed to have meaning. At 3:11 a.m., the phone rang. Not my cell, the landline. A sharp, old-fashioned ring that cut straight through sleep. I sat up, heart hammering, staring at the phone on the wall. The number display was blank. The phone rang again. And again. I didn't answer. I couldn't. On the fourth ring, the answering machine, still unplugged, boxed up, began to beep from inside the cardboard. A cheerful little beep, like it had power. I froze. My throat tightened. The beeping stopped. Then the machine's tiny speaker crackled, muffled by the box. A voice leaked through. My father's voice. He said, "Don't answer." The landline rang again, louder now, somehow. I stared at the phone like it was a live thing. My skin prickled. The house felt like it was leaning in, waiting for my choice. I stood up, trembling, and walked toward the kitchen. Each step felt like walking into a memory that didn't want me. The answering machine beeped again, and then played a new message, one I hadn't heard before. This time, my father didn't whisper. He spoke clearly, urgently. "Someone's upstairs," he said. "Can hear it." The message ended. Silence. The house was still. And then, from above me, from the dark hallway at the top of the stairs, came the softest sound, like a floorboard testing weight. A single creak, not settling, not random. A step. I stood at the bottom of the staircase, unable to move, staring into the upper darkness where the rail disappeared. Another creak. Closer to the stairs, I backed away without turning around, my breath shallow, my eyes stinging. I grabbed my keys, my jacket, and I left the house with the careful speed of someone trying not to startle a predator. I didn't go back that night. The next day, I returned with my brother and 2 movers. We cleared the last boxes in daylight. Nothing upstairs looked disturbed. No footprints, no signs of anyone. But when I went to unplug the landline, I found the answering machine sitting on the counter again, not in the box. Plugged in. The red light blinked. Messages 1. My brother swore he hadn't touched it. The movers looked uneasy, pretending not to listen. I pressed play, static. Then my own voice, but not from any message I remembered leaving. This sounded like me whispering into a phone with tears in my throat. "I'm still here," my voice said softly. "I can't get out." The message ended with a quiet click, The blinking lights stayed on, steady and patient, like the house was waiting for me to call back. I worked night security at an apartment complex that catered to people who wanted to feel safe without thinking about why they needed it. The kind of place with a fountain in the lobby and cameras in every hallway. The kind of place where the elevators were silent and the carpets swallowed footsteps. My patrol route was predictable. Parking garage, mailroom, gym, pool deck. Roof access, repeat. The roof access was always locked. It had to be. Too many accidents, too many drunk decisions. But one night, during a storm, the roof door was open. Not wide, just enough to show a thin wedge of black and the faint shimmer of rain beyond. I stopped with my flashlight raised, listening. The stairwell smelled damp, like wet concrete. The air coming through the crack was colder than it should have been. I pushed the door shut and tugged it to make sure it latched. It did. When I returned to my desk, the camera feed for the roof stairwell was black, not dark black. As if someone had placed a hand over the lens. I switched screens. All other cameras were fine. Roof stairwell black. I called maintenance. No answer. It was 2:58 a.m. I decided to check it myself. Protocol said never go alone, but protocol was written for daytime. I took the elevator to the top floor and walked to the stairwell. The hallway lights flickered once, as if the building was exhaling. The stairwell door was closed. I opened it. The air inside was colder than before. Not just cold, Ron, like stepping into the shade of something enormous. I climbed. My flashlight beam trembled over concrete steps, over the metal railing, over the small window that showed nothing but rain and the faint blur of city lights. At the roof door, I stopped. The handle was wet. Rainwater trickled down it, even though the door was shut. I pressed my hand against the metal and felt something vibrate faintly beneath it. Not electricity, not wind. A low, subtle trembling, like the door was holding back pressure from the other side. I didn't want to open it. My body knew that in the same instinctive way you know not to lean over a cliff, but I had to check. I had to put the world back in order. I turned the handle. The door swung outward with no resistance. The roof was slick with rain. The city skyline glowed at a distance, blurred by mist. The air smelled metallic, like wet pennies. And there, in the center of the roof, stood a person. No umbrella. No hood. Just a figure facing away from me, perfectly still in the rain. My flashlight beam hit their back and didn't seem to brighten them the way it should. The light looked swallowed, absorbed. I called out, my voice thin in the wind. I told them the roof was closed. They didn't move. I stepped closer, my boots slipping slightly. The rain hit my face like cold needles. As I approached, I realized something else. There were footprints in the water on the roof, not leading to the person, leading away from them, as if they had been standing there so long the rain had made prints around their feet. I slowed. My throat tightened. The figure's shoulders rose and fell once, slow, as if breathing. Then, without turning, they lifted an arm and pointed toward the roof door behind me. The gesture was calm, almost polite, like they were giving me directions. I glanced back at the door. It was still open. The stairwell beyond was dark. When I looked back at the figure, they were closer. No sound of footsteps, no rush, just closer, like the roof had folded the distance. The rain felt louder suddenly, like static. My skin prickled. My flashlight flickered. The figure's head began to turn, slow as a hinge. I didn't wait to see their face. I ran back to the door, slipping, catching myself on the railing, heart punching my ribs. I slammed the roof door shut behind me and threw the deadbolt. In the stairwell, my breath came out in sharp bursts. I stood with my back against the door, listening. At first, only rain and the distant hum of the building. Then a soft sound from the other side of the door, a knuckle tapping metal. Once, twice, 3 times. Not frantic, Not angry, patient. Then the handle began to turn, slowly, even though the deadbolt was locked. I backed down the stairs, step by step, refusing to turn my back fully, my flashlight shaking. The tapping continued above me, steady as a metronome. When I reached the lower landing, the building's emergency intercom crackled to life. A calm, automated voice spoke through the speaker. "Roof access is now open." I froze. Then the voice continued, but the tone changed slightly, as if the system had been taught to whisper. "Come back," it said softly. "We're not finished." The intercom clicked off. I didn't go back up. I quit that week, citing safety concerns. Management nodded too quickly, like they'd heard the same excuse from someone else. Sometimes, late at night when the rain is heavy, I check my phone out of habit and see a push notification from an app I never installed. Roof access. Open. And in the blurry preview image, a wet rooftop under city lights. I can just make out a figure standing still, waiting in the rain, pointing gently toward the door like a host showing you the way inside. I moved into a small rental house on the edge of town because I needed quiet, a place to reset after a bad year. The landlord was friendly in a practiced way, smiling with his mouth but not his eyes. "It's a calm neighborhood," he said. "Only thing is, the back room stays locked. Storage. Old stuff. Don't worry about it." The back room door was in the hallway, painted the same off-white as the walls. It had a new deadbolt and a doorknob that looked recently replaced. I told myself I didn't care. For the first month, I almost forgot it was there. Work, sleep, coffee, repeat. The house was quiet in a way that felt healing. No neighbors close enough to hear. Just wind in the trees and the occasional far-off dog bark. Then I started hearing something at night. A soft, scraping sound, like cardboard shifting on a concrete floor. It always came from the hallway, from behind the locked door. At first, it was brief, 10 seconds, then silence. Then it became longer, a minute, 2. Some nights it sounded like someone dragging something heavy a few inches, then stopping to rest. I told myself it was rodents, temperature changes, old wood. But one night, I woke at 3:11 a.m. to the sound of a key turning in a lock. I sat up in bed, every muscle tense, listening. The key turned again, slow, careful, like someone didn't want to be heard. Then the deadbolt clicked. My breath caught. The back room door was down the hall. I could see the hallway from my bedroom if the door was open a crack. In the dim glow of my nightlight, the hallway looked empty. But I heard it clearly, the soft, unmistakable sound of a lock disengaging. Then silence. No footsteps. No creak of the door opening. Just the feeling that something had changed in the house's posture, like the air had shifted its weight. I got out of bed and walked to the hallway, phone in hand, flashlight on. My steps were careful, controlled. I didn't want to wake whatever might be there. The back room door was still closed. The deadbolt was still in place. I stood there, staring, confused and cold. Then I noticed something. A thin line of dust at the base of the door had been disturbed. A clean streak, like something had passed under it. I crouched and shined my light. The streak wasn't from the outside. It led outward into the hallway, as if something had come out from beneath the door without opening it. I backed away, skin crawling, and returned to my bedroom. I locked my door, even though it felt ridiculous. In the morning, I called the landlord. I told him I'd heard noises. I asked what was in the back room. He paused too long before answering. "Old belongings," he said. "Nothing you need." I told him I wanted to see it. Another pause, then a small laugh that didn't sound amused. "No reason," he said. "It's just storage." That night, the scraping began earlier. It wasn't random anymore. It had rhythm, like a person moving objects deliberately. I sat on my bed and listened, trying to map the sound in my mind. Drag, stop, drag, stop. Then, very faintly, I heard something else. A slow exhale, not from the hallway. From inside my room, I froze. The air near the closet felt colder, as if the house had opened a window only I couldn't see. I turned my flashlight toward the closet door. It was slightly open. I knew I'd closed it. The gap was small, but inside was pure darkness, deeper than it should have been in a room with a nightlight. I stared at that gap until my eyes ached. Then something inside the closet moved, not outward, not dramatic. Just a subtle shift, like a person adjusting their stance. My mouth went dry. I couldn't make sound. From the hallway, the scraping stopped. The house went still, holding its breath. And then, from behind the back room door, came a soft sound of satisfaction. A quiet click, like a lock being re-engaged, but not the back room's lock. Mine eye turned slowly, toward my bedroom door. The doorknob was turning, not rattling. Turning steadily, as if someone had all the time in the world. The knob reached the end of its rotation. The latch didn't release, because I had locked it. The knob returned to center. Then it turned again, slowly, patiently. Testing, I backed away from the door and toward the bed, my flashlight shaking. The closet door behind me creaked wider on its own. A cold breath brushed the back of my neck, intimate as a whisper. And in that cold, I heard a sound that didn't belong in any house. A key sliding softly into a lock. Not the back room. Not the front door. My bedroom door. The knob turned one last time. This time, the latch clicked. My door opened a fraction, just enough for darkness to press in like a body leaning through. I didn't see a face. I didn't see hands. I only saw the hallway beyond my room, empty, dim, ordinary. And yet, something stood in that gap, blocking the light in a shape that felt too tall, too close. The air smelled like old cardboard and damp earth. Then, from the darkness, a whisper formed, not a word, but the shape of one. Like something learning how to speak by copying the idea of speech. And in that almost word, I understood something with sudden, sick clarity. The back room had never been storage. It was a place to keep something contained. And the only reason it stayed locked was because it hadn't found the right door yet. My bedroom door opened another inch. I didn't scream. I didn't run. I sat perfectly still, because some deep part of me knew movement would make it real in a way I couldn't undo. The door stopped opening. The darkness held there, hovering. Then it withdrew, slow and careful, as if deciding not to take me yet. My door closed softly. The latch clicked into place. The lock turned. From the outside, the morning, the landlord texted me a cheerful message. "Everything okay? Just checking in." I moved out that day, leaving most of my things behind. I didn't argue for my deposit. I didn't ask for explanations. But sometimes, late at night when my new apartment is quiet, I hear a soft scraping sound from the corner of my bedroom, like cardboard shifting on concrete. And I know, with the calm dread of someone who learned the truth too late, that some doors don't keep things out. They only teach them where to knock.